Terrarian in the Dungeon, Chapter 2b, Fan Fiction by Azazyel. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel for listening and patreon.com/Azazyel to read all of his stories. Yes, a mortal will seek to temper themselves in the furnace of battle. But not being able to see your fate and future makes me feel antsy, I suppose. Sesha explained weakly, and I nodded in understanding, and then, to cheer her up, I decided to use my Familia privilege to give my goddess so head scratches. Come here, I am calling in the head scratches you promised, I said, holding in my chuckles as she looked back up to me, both dismay and excitement. I couldn't tell honestly. She was a woman and a cat girl to boot. No man in the universe will be able to tell what she was thinking. Impertinent mortal, you reach beyond your position. Very well. I will allow you the honor of touching my ears, she said, as though it was some great sacrifice for herself in order to comfort me. Oh, great goddess Sesha, this humble mortal acolyte merely wishes to thread his fingers through your midnight locks of hair while paying grace to your absolutely adorable cat ears, I spoke, hamming it up and making her chuckle as she sat in front of me this time and then bent her head over so I could begin scratching her ears. My ears are fierce, not adorable, she muttered, and my lips only twitched in response as I took my time just scratching her leopard ears. Alright, Sesha. Well, I guess I am going to try to make some wooden armor now, I said, pulling my hands away from the goddess, and for a brief moment I saw her pout, but she put on an amused expression as she saw me take up the carving and other woodworking tools to the workbench we created. Ho! You are confident enough to do it on your own and not ask for my guiding hand? She asked cockily, and I guilelessly nodded, making her tail twitch before I spoke and seemingly earned her approval. I need to get used to doing this myself, and although I certainly will listen and appreciate whatever advice you got, in the end, all this needs to pass through my hands in order for my skill to work, I said as my mind drifted on to how I was going to make said wooden armor, and even took note of its set bonus should I wear a full set of wooden armor. Under direct sunlight, I will get minor enhanced healing and stamina recovery. I mentally read out and could only deadpan at how utterly useless such a thing was in the dungeon, as there was absolutely zero sunlight in the dungeon no matter the floor as far as I was aware. But indestructible armor was indestructible armor. Actually, I didn't have a mana or health bar or anything like that except for having the inventory and the armor/accessory slots on the side of the mental construct, so I wonder how the armor will protect me, and what the armor rating itself does in any case. To start off with making the wooden armor, I decided to work from the easiest piece, the chest plate, work towards the most difficult part, the boots and leg armor, due to all its moving parts, using little wooden hinges to act as the connecting point for the back and front chest plate. If I didn't know your cheat was so stupid, I would want to slap you upside the head for having such a prominent weakness where the small hinges could break, leaving the chest plate to just fall off of you. Sesha muttered, looking at the 4 hinges with 2 on each side of my shoulder that held together the chest plates for my front and back. It doesn't really defend my throat much, but it covers my chest and will keep the goblins from shanking me in the back, I said, taking in the armor and actually putting it on, and had to grimace as it obviously wasn't all that comfortable. Wait, how did I succeed this time? I muttered, honestly confused as I took in the pile of wooden scraps beside me, and Sesha scoffed. Bah, that workbench is just as much of a cheat as you are. It seemingly allowed your every carving motion to take the perfect amount of wood off and just generally make your crafting work like 10% better, so it went from garbage that a street rat wouldn't fight with to an armor that a poor brand new adventurer could go into the dungeon with to get money to get real armor. Sesha criticized, and I realized from the mental information that the discomfort I was having with the armor was due to its low quality, and it literally in my inventory had a negative epitaph naming it a shoddy wooden chest plate that supposedly made me slower somehow. Well, at least I succeeded, to begin with, I muttered, pouting before a stupid idea came to me, and I sighed, looking to Sesha. Sesha, please take that hammer and hit me in the chest with it. I need to see what this armor rating means, I asked. For a moment Sesha looked at me like I was an idiot before she sighed and grabbed the hammer before hesitating, and then reached into another cabinet and took out a red potion that was obviously a healing potion. Alright, Jake. You asked for it, she said, taking the large wooden carpentry hammer and winding up for a baseball swing. My face twitched as I noticed she was most certainly far more gung-ho in testing this than I was. So, like a man who got dared by his buddies to do something stupid, in order to not be called a punk bitch, I squared up and got ready for the ass-kicking I literally asked for. With a sharp crack of wood meeting wood, I squawked like a rubber duck being squeezed underwater as the wooden armor only braced for a moment before her hammer slid down past the armor's chest plate and allowing the rest of the hammer's force of impact to smash into my stomach, and needless to say I bent over at my knees at the feeling of a fucking hammer sliding itself onto my lower stomach. Shit, you okay, Jake? Did I burst your spleen or something? she asked with some actual concern as she leaned over and I waved her off as I gathered my breath in the corner of my eye. I saw how the so-called armor rating went from its prior 3 to 0 and was beginning to regenerate as it went to a 1, and then remembering the brief moment of where the armor cold stopped the hammer altogether, I realized that the Terraria armor worked somewhat like a force field as it pushed aside blows, and after the armor rating was used up I would take damage and actually get hurt then. Yeah, I learned something very important, I spoke as I stood back up while rubbing my sore belly and then launched into an explanation of my findings. After understanding my findings, Sesha nodded as she gave me a pat on my head. Good job, Jake, you made your dungeon survival much more assured. Now let me help you make a better chest plate and the other 2 pieces so in the morning you can get registered at the guild and then try your luck in the dungeon. She spoke, and after a moment of hesitation of where I wanted to work on my own armor, I was reminded of the shoddy epitaph on my armor that could very well bring about my death in the dungeon. So, I hung up my pride and accepted her offer of help with only making a mental note to practice making stuff on my own time without her help.